All right. Welcome to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny. I'm coming to you live on location in Charleston, South Carolina today. Frankie, how you doing, man? Did you make it through week 2? It's brutal.
I did make it through. I did not leave unscathed, though. Definitely had, fortunately, Chubby was on the team. We're going to get to him in a second. But, John, I did make it through, just not unscathed.
Yeah, your Chubby got a little soft here. I don't even want to talk about it. We'll get into it clearly. Welcome to the show, everybody. I hope you guys made it through week 2 unscathed because, man, it was a bloodbath out there. You know, it's almost like when these guys don't play in the preseason at all, the first couple of weeks of the year are just brutal. It's really, really difficult. Welcome to the show, everybody. We've got a great show for you today. Today is the week 2 Ice and Fire and the Thursday night preview for week 3. So let's get into it here. We've also got a little news and notes for you, and let's hit that and see what the damage was this week, man.
The season that your listeners don't expect.
News and notes.
All right, the first piece of news here, let's just get it out of the way. Nick Chubb, Monday Night Football. Brutal knee injury. Everybody saw the pictures. I don't even want to think about it, but Nick Chubb is confirmed out for the season with a knee injury, very serious knee injury. Thoughts and prayers obviously going out to Nick Chubb, my favorite player in the NFL. Frankie, I know you were heavily invested in Nick Chubb this season. All right, so let's not dwell on that injury, but let's look at what we're looking at moving forward here. Frankie, talk about what some of the options are with that Cleveland Browns backfield.
I mean, guys, it's definitely going to be Jerome Ford in the near time. You just got to try to get him on the waivers. If you have him, well done. You're going to be using him for this specific moment. John, it's going to be interesting, though, because, you know, they did bring a guy like Pierre Strong, and Pierre Strong did do well, but they're going to be looking elsewhere. It looks like there's rumblings of them bringing in potentially a Cam Akers or potentially that of even Kareem Hunt. So it's going to be interesting, right? But as of right now, John, the immediate future, it's got to be Jerome Ford. You got to pick him up everywhere you can by the sheer volume that the Browns do from the running back position.
Yeah, and there's a tough schedule coming up, too. This week is fantastic. They're playing Tennessee. If you've got Jerome Ford, fire him up. Should have a great game at Tennessee. But we got some tough games coming up. Absolutely. Keep an eye on that. We'll obviously keep everybody updated as what they're looking at as far as picking somebody else up. Okay. Saquon Barkley left the game with an ankle injury. It looked really, really bad when it happened. Apparently, it's not as bad as we thought. Brian Daboll said, quote, fast healer Saquon has a chance to play on Thursday. Come on, man. There's no way he's going to be playing on Thursday. I would absolutely make plans to not have Saquon this Thursday. But the good news is that it's not a significant injury and he should be back soon. Keep an eye on that. Kyren Williams. He is the Rams running back 1.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. He is the guy, and he's playing very, very well. So if you did pick up Kyren Williams, congratulations. You can start him with confidence. Several teams now in talks with Los Angeles Rams about Cam Akers. Cam Akers is going to be on another team. With all these injuries, there are going to be suitors for Cam Akers. How do you feel about Cam Akers going to a situation maybe like Cleveland, maybe like Baltimore? I mean, what are your thoughts with that, Frankie?
It's going to be tough, John. I mean, here you have a talented guy who we know can run the ball very well. I mean, very well. Like, he's not going to be elite or anything, but he's a good running back. But if he goes to a place like Cleveland, he's going to be doing a 50-50 split with Jerome Ford, at least for the immediate future. He goes to a backfield of that of Baltimore Ravens. Again, a heavy split with how Justice Hill has been doing, with how Gus Edwards has been doing. And obviously they still have Melvin Gordon on the practice squad. So for me, man, it's going to be tough. You're definitely going to want him on your team in case of an injury or something crazy happens, but it's going to be tough, man. It really is.
Yeah, keep an eye on that. He goes into the right situation, though. It could be really interesting. So we'll break that down. Obviously, I think he's going to be on a team as soon as next week. I really do. Yeah. So we'll break that down once we hear more here. Chargers head coach Quote, no timeline on Eckler return. That doesn't sound good. I mean, that sounds like they've got a very good backup with Joshua Kelly that they like. It sounds like they're going to be holding Eckler out for a little while. So definitely keep an eye on that. That is not good language coming from a coach. Usually it's the opposite, like Brian Daboll, where he's in a walking boot and he's like, man, he may play Thursday. It's usually that bullshit we're getting from coaches, not now. I don't know what we're going to do with Eckler. That's not a good sign. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, placed on IR. So he will be gone for the next 4 weeks. Devontae Adams left the game with a concussion. He is in the concussion protocol, went through it. He is, quote, good to go, according to Josh McDaniels. So Devontae Adams is going to be fine this week. A couple of concussions. We're going to have to keep an eye on some of these guys. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins, in concussion protocol. Anthony Richardson, quarterback for the Colts, in concussion protocol. He was having a great game, too, man.
He was having a great game.
I think he's going to be in concussion protocol every single week. You know, he had 17, 18 points before he left the game with a concussion during his touchdown. But he looks impressive. What do you think about Anthony Richardson? Is this a guy you can roll out every week?
I think at this point in time, it's you could trust him. I mean, seriously, like with Joe Burrow not performing well at this point in time, you probably drafted him. For those that drafted him, if Anthony Richardson is still sitting there on the waivers, pick him up. Use him from match to match, as long as he's going to be back and healthy. Same thing with like if you're using the free agent carousel for the waiver wires for quarterback. Maybe you waited and you're debating between Mac Jones and Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield. At that point in time, I think Anthony Richardson is a viable option, guys. So depending on how your roster construction is, he could be a guy that you can roll out there as of right now due to the rushing floor.
Yeah, another running back here, David Montgomery. He was one of our starts of the week, and he looked good. He was having a really good game. Left the game with a thigh bruise. Sounds like it's going to take a couple of weeks to heal. He's day-to-day right now, but the team's saying it should take a few weeks for him. Keep an eye on that. That's going to leave Jahmyr Gibbs alone in the backfield, Frankie. How do you feel about that?
Love Jahmyr Gibbs back there by himself. They haven't even unleashed the beast yet. We're going to see it here coming soon. And I think if you're holding on to Jahmyr Gibbs or you took a risk on him, like maybe John and I did, you're going to reap the reward.
Yeah, I'm hoping we started to see him get a little more involved. Every single week, I think we're going to see him get more involved. This just pushes the envelope here and says, go. It's go. It's time to go. All right. Joe Burrow did not play well. He's not healthy. I mean, you could tell these past 2 weeks, no, he's not healthy. Did re-aggravate the calf at the end of the game there. He is questionable for Monday Night Football right now, and it's very possible they say, you know what, this is too important to us. This is our franchise. We just paid this guy $275 million. We need to get him healthy. Keeping him out there. Do you see him playing on Monday night, or do you see them giving him a little rest?
John, if I were them, I would absolutely be giving them a little rest, right? Because they're they are at home against that of the Rams, and then they go to Tennessee, then they go to Arizona, and then they're back at home versus Seattle. So they kind of have, I don't want to say a cream puff by any means type of, schedule coming up here. But if I were them, don't worry about Aaron Donald coming down and trying to wreck you this week. Lay low. I understand it's easier said than done, especially when your team's sitting there 0-2 and Cincinnati's kind of freaking out right now. And, things are in turmoil, but do the right thing. You just paid the guy an assload of money. You paid this guy to be your guy for the next 5, 7, 10 years. Don't screw it up now. If I were those guys, hold tight, let him chill, let him get healthy, get a week under his belt, and then get ready for a much more favorable matchup for the next 3 weeks before bye.
Yeah, and the backup quarterback has never thrown a pass in the NFL. That's a little scary, too.
That's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah, it's very tough, yeah. Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver for the Ravens, had an ankle injury. They're saying he should play. It's not really a guy I feel good about throwing out there and starting anyway. I've been saying this every week, and it's been proving to be true. Chase Edmonds, not really fantasy relevant himself, but he is out 4 to 6 weeks, running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The reason I brought this up is because Rachaad White, it's what I have in parentheses, Rachaad White. Yep. He really was the only competition for Rachaad White in the backfield as far as pass catching and running the ball Rachaad White had a very good week. He is going to be alone now in this backfield. I think Rachaad White's a great start for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Puka Nacua. Puka. Let's talk about Puka Nacua for a second. Yeah, Puka Nacua makes NFL history. How about that? The most receptions by a receiver in the first 2 games. I mean, just unbelievable, man. I mean, this guy is he's a must start at this point. Do you agree?
100% agree, John. I mean, 20 targets in 1 week. That was this past week. That's absurd, man. That's crazy.
And he hit 15 the week before.
35, man. That's what people get through the first 7 weeks. Sometimes they don't even get that in their entire season. That's nuts.
Oh, yeah. One last injury here to talk about. Jamal Williams, running back for the New Orleans Saints, left the game on Monday night with a hamstring injury. Keep an eye on him. That's something that will linger a bit. We've got how long? You're on the Alvin Kamara watch, Frank. You got real risky and drafted him a lot. When are we looking at Alvin Kamara returning? And what do you think about that Saints backfield?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. 1, 2. 1, 2, baby. We got to push through this week and we pop him in our lineup the next. Push pop. All right. So, yeah, man, I'm all about Alvin Kamara. I love him in this backfield. I think Derek Carr is going to only be better. This is the element they're missing. They're missing a true pass catcher out of the backfield who can also run between the tackles fairly decently to complement that of Jamal Williams. Now that he's hurt, we have an opportunity to see Alvin Kamara back the way he was, and he's going to be healthy. So I think this could be really exciting for the Saints, who, by the way, are 2-0.
They are 2-0. Are you big on Tony Jones Jr.? Scored twice on Monday night. Is that a guy you should be looking at picking up and playing until Kamara gets back?
You know, you could for this coming week, John. The only issue that I really have with picking up Tony Jones Jr., I kind of feel like it was a fly-by-night thing, right? And then when we look at who they're playing at Green Bay next. So this is not a very good matchup, especially when you're in Lambeau and you're on your third string running back technically, and you're trying to get Derek Carr acclimated, and then you get thrown into the Wolves' den over here with the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau. For me, man, you can if you had Nick Chubb, perfect example, and it's a very depleted waiver wire, you could do something like that, John. But I would still try to look elsewhere based on the matchup.
All right, let's get to Frankie and Johnny's Song of Ice and Fire. All right, let's go. We got a lot of guys on ice here. A lot of names we need to discuss here that just did not do very well. Yeah, I mean, very surprising too. Joshua Kelly, the first guy. I mean, this guy was a darling. Eckler's gone. You put in Joshua Kelly, who had a great game in week 1. Yeah. Came out, did not do it for you. 13 for 39, less than 4 points. All right, the next guy, Justin Fields. I'm worried about this team. Frankie, why don't you tell me about Justin Fields' stat line here. And what do we do with this Bears team moving forward?
John, I'm concerned, and I'm very, very concerned. His stat line, guys, for those listening and watching, he had 16 completions on 29 passing attempts for 211 yards. He only had 1 touchdown. He threw 2 picks. He did rush for another TD, but he had 2 fumbles, and he got sacked 6 times. What this is telling me is they have a massive, massive offensive line problem, big time. And in addition, it ties into Justin Fields also isn't playing super great. So it's not just the offensive line, John. It's also the fact that they have had piss poor play through the first 2 weeks of Justin Fields. So yes, a good example of this is last year, right? I remember when we were like, hey, are we ready to hit the panic button on Devonta Smith? And we were kind of like, yeah, a little bit, Now I'm ready to full blown hit the panic button for that of Justin Fields this year. This is a massive problem, and I think they need to get this addressed immediately.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, he had an issue. I mean, he had 7 really good games last year. I mean, it was really just half of the season that he really exploded. And I think everybody assumed that he was going to just go right where he pick up right where he left off and continue that. They've clearly got to figure out what's going on with this offense. And Justin Fields, I just don't feel great throwing him out there. I mean, are you looking at Kirk Cousins over Justin Fields at this point?
100%. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I would do Kirk Cousins over majority. You know what's funny? Kirk Cousins is actually QB1 right now in fantasy football. Fun fact. Fun facts by Frank.
Yeah, Jared Goff over Justin Fields.
No question.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson over Justin Fields. How do you feel there?
Not yet. For me personally, not yet. Because I like the supporting cast more around that of Justin Fields. So if they can figure this out, I still like that a little bit more. I think there's a tier drop.
I'm getting close. I'm real close. I'm real close to starting Anthony Richardson over Justin Fields at this point. It's a little scary. Jamar Chase, wide receiver for the Bengals, 5 for 8, 31 yards, less than 6 points. Didn't goose egg, but less than 6 points out of Jamar Chase, a guy you drafted in the top 3. What do you do? All right. What do you do here? Well, you start him every week, obviously.
Have to.
Jamar Chase, to me, try to go get him. Try to see if you can get him on the cheap. It's not going to be super cheap because it's Jamar Chase, but try to get something. Yeah, maybe that guy lost Nick Chubb. Maybe that guy is, hurting with, Saquon or David Montgomery, some of these other running back, injuries. Maybe they got J.K. Dobbins. See what you can do to maybe go try to get Jamar Chase. This won't last. It may be a few more weeks. He may not be great for a few more weeks, but he will get back to form at some point. George Kittle, tight end for the 49ers, 3 for 3, 30 yards, 4 points. Difficult to throw him out there. I don't feel great about it. I didn't love him going in because of all the options they've got. But yeah, it's a little difficult right now to throw George Kittle out there. Samaje Perine, we loved him this week.
Man.
It was so weird what happened. It was a 50-50 split with Javonte Williams. And now all of a sudden, Samaje Perine gets 1 carry for 4 yards, targeted 4 times, 3 catches, 20 yards, 4.5 points. What do you do with Samaje Perine going forward? Is that just a game script thing? Was that just a weird coaching decision? Do you feel good about throwing him back out there?
Yeah, John, totally. I'm not giving up on Samaje Perine, and I'll tell you why. Because Javonte Williams, when you look at what he did, he also ran the ball 12 times for 44 yards. Samaje Perine only saw one of those rushes, and he got a few catches. I definitely think that is the exception, not the rule. I'm not really worried about it at this point in time.
All right, here's a guy I'm a little bit worried about, and I love this guy, Damian Pierce, 14 for 31, 2 catches, 3 targets, 4 yards, 4.5 points out of Damian Pierce. When are you going to feel great about throwing Damian Pierce out there?
I don't know if I'm going to, John. I don't know if I'm going to. And the reason being is because it's not because of talent. It's strictly because of the team. They're always behind. They're constantly behind. So what they're doing is they're throwing the ball to overcompensate for that. And so the game scripts are not going to be favorable for Damian Pierce. And John, this is actually something that I would love to hit on for a second, is because this is a guy we're talking about buying low on as well. I say that because, right, if as soon as he or if I have him, right, not buy low, if I have him and he pops off, that's when I want to sell him high. I would want to sell Damian Pierce high. I don't want him on my team. If he has a favorable matchup coming up here soon and he ends up popping off, guys, sell him. Get something really of value for him, especially with a guy that maybe has J.K. hurt or Jamal Williams hurt or David Montgomery in a 0 RB or an Alexander Madison, to where Alexander Madison owners like this guy over here is kind of, kicking himself in the ass. So this is like, wait, hold on. I know it's tough, but sell this dude high.
And let's get right into Alexander Madison next on the ICE segment here. 8 for 28, 3 catches for 11 yards. He fumbled.
Brutal.
2 points for Alexander Madison. This is not the Alexander Madison that we saw fill in for Dalvin Cook.
Not even close.
It's just not. What do you do? Do you feel good about playing him at all? Can he still be your RB2 right now? Or is it completely going to be matchup based?
It's at this point in time, it's totally going to be matchup based. At this point in time, you better be looking for other options. If Kyren Williams is still on that waiver wire, throw the money at him and plug him in over Alexander Madison at this point in time. Guys, there's other opportunities out there. For me, in my position, John, I'm lucky because I ended up I went a stable of running backs. I went Alexander Madison, James Cook, and a few others. So I have some backing there. If you don't have the backing, it's time to really start honing in on, okay, how do I get creative within the teams that I have today? So yeah, this is tough, John.
I start Jerome Ford over Alexander Madison.
I would too.
Without
No question about it. This coming week. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. All right. More on ice here. Miles Sanders didn't help you out this week. 14 for 43, 3 catches for 4 yards. He only had 6 points. Khalil Herbert, we talked about the troubles with the Chicago offense. Their backfield is weird right now. Khalil Herbert is the lead back. Deontay Foreman was a healthy scratch. We didn't see a lot of action out of Roshan Johnson either, but Khalil Herbert, 7 rushes for 35, 1 catch for 23. He only had 6 points for you. As my champion, I'm hurt by that. I'm personally offended by that. Yeah. Another guy that we loved had a really rough week as well. Jahan Dotson, 3 catches on 5 targets for 22 yards, less than 4 points for Jahan Dotson. Not where you want to be there. Terry McLaurin did come back. Terry McLaurin did play and scored. Yeah. So, that's kind of cutting into that a little bit. We're going to have to see how that Sam Howell-led offense, I think we need a little more time to really see where the ball's being distributed. Yeah. Also on ice here, Trevor Lawrence. Ugh. Hey, Frank, we're going to include this as your stack, okay? This is not the stack of the week, by the way. Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley really just got rocked by that Kansas City defense. That's crazy, man. Trevor Lawrence, 22 for 41, 216 yards, 26 yards rushing, 2 fumbles, 4 sacks, only 3 points out of Sir Trevor. That's rough. Calvin Ridley only had 2 catches, 8 targets, 32 yards, 4 points out of Calvin Ridley. Is this just an unfortunate week, Frank? Is it a one-off?
Totally a one-off. Totally an unfortunate week. You look at Calvin Ridley, guys. He had a couple opportunities to score. They were targeting him. 8 targets. I'll take it all damn day. And then on top of it, with Goldilocks over there with Sunshine and Trevor Lawrence, yeah, I also think we saw this is a prime example, John, of what happens when you get your guy from a defensive tackle perspective. Chris Jones made that difference known. And so this was game 1 back. He was ready to prove the point. He proved the point. And so Trevor Lawrence was just on the opposite end. I think it was bad luck mixed with a pissed off offense or defense and them losing against Detroit. It was just a really bad mix of shit. So I think moving forward, I'm not worried about it.
All right. A.J. Brown, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. In my boy band, guys on ice, man.
I'm worried.
Definitely some issues. I'm a little nervous too. We had talked about that Devonta Smith could, be the 1A of the 1A, 1B in that receiving room. And after 2 weeks, that does seem to be the case. What do you do with A.J. Brown? Is this a guy you're going to buy low on, or are you concerned long-term with him?
I'm totally buying low on A.J. Brown. If somebody's willing to sell it, I'm willing to buy it. But here's the thing. Level set expectations for where you think A.J. Brown is going to be compared to last year. It's a different Devonta Smith. It's a different Jalen Hurts. It's a different offense without Miles Sanders at the back as well. So it's a completely revamped thing. So for me, man, I love A.J. Brown from buying low if you can get him. However, if I have A.J. Brown, I'm a little nervous because of where you had to draft him in order to get him. That's the difference, guys. So it's an uneasy feeling right now, John, if you have him.
Yeah. We'll get to a couple more guys here on ice. Derek Carr had a rough night, less than 4 points for Derek Carr. Najee Harris, 10 for 43, less than 5 points. We're seeing that Jaylen Warren shift. It's happening. I think that's what you're going to see throughout the season. Jaylen Warren looks like a better running back. DeAndre Hopkins, D-Hop, 6 points out of D-Hop. He didn't help you out. This guy got crushed. Dalvin Cook, running back for the Jets. 4 rushes for 7 yards, man. A fumble. He had negative points this week. Breece Hall, really, they didn't play him at all. I mean, this defense just absolutely destroyed these guys. Are you worried about Dalvin Cook moving forward?
Yeah. Yes, I am. Definitely, because he's already going to be splitting time with Breece Hall. And on top of that, he doesn't look like the old Dalvin Cook, which we kind of shouldn't expect him to because he's kind of getting old. And so, yeah, if you really have Dalvin Cook as your RB2 right now, it's going to be tough sledding. It's going to be tough sledding.
Yeah. Kyle Pitts didn't help you out this week. 2 catches, 15 yards, 2.5 points. Deshaun Watson. Frank, break down Deshaun Watson for me, buddy. Let's end ice appropriately here.
On this shit bag Yeah, absolutely. Glad to. 22 for 40, 235 yards and a touchdown, 1 interception. He also ran the ball for 22 yards. He had 1 2-point conversion. He fumbled twice, and he was sacked 6 times, 4 of them, which was because of him holding the ball too long. I want to make that crystal clear for those that are just seeing a stat line. So, John, yeah, really, it's an average stat line, if I'm being honest with you, but the play was terrible. And a couple of those balls that he threw, Amari Cooper made an insane catch. So I think it's a little bit padded. There were some okay things that he did. Most of it, shit. So, yeah, that's Deshaun Watson for this week. Can you tell I'm still fuming a bit?
You are, and you're holding back. You just want to throw out all the F-bombs, and you want to hurt this guy just emotionally, physically. I know our text threads have been going off since that game on Monday night. Oh my God. All right, Frankie, let's get rid of all that bullshit and get rid of the ice, put it back in the freezer. Let's see who's on fire. Who's on fire this week? We've got Kirk Cousins, the #1 fantasy player of the week. 35 points. Great week out of Kirk Cousins. You can just fire him up each and every week. No reason to think that's going to stop. Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes coming in at number 2. 33 points out of Danny Dimes. Yeah. Do not expect that this week.
No. God, no.
At San Francisco. We'll get to that very, very soon. But yeah, don't expect that to return. Number 3, this one pains me here. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense, depending on your scoring. Yeah, it's kind of how I feel as well, man. 29 points for the Pittsburgh defense. All right, here's a good one I want you to talk about, Frank. Raheem Mostert. Nice to see him. Number 4 fantasy scorer of the week. 28 points out of Raheem Mostert. I really enjoyed watching that from my bench, actually. I didn't start him. What do you do with Raheem Mostert going forward? I mean, that was against the New England defense in New England.
An excellent defense. Defense. John, Raheem Mostert right now is the number 5 running back in half PPR. Through 2 weeks, he's the number 5. Guys, he went nuclear. He racked up 121 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns on 18 carries. Phenomenal. And he added a reception for 6 yards, contributing in through the air just a tad. So, John, for me, man, moving forward, you got to be looking to fire him up. I mean, he's got Denver next. Denver just got shredded on the ground. Buffalo's going to be a tough matchup. But then he goes Giants, Carolina, and then Philly, and then New England again. Guys, this is a very good play from a flex perspective, at least. So I would be high. And this is also a guy you might be able to sell extremely high. Raheem Mostert is a guy that we have known that doesn't make it through a season. Unfortunately, that's the truth. So if you have him now's the time to maybe be priming the pump a bit. See what you can get. Cast a line out there, because maybe you can get somebody on the flip side like an Alvin Kamara coming out or something along those lines that might be a little bit more sexy. But if you don't want to, that's fine too. He has been excellent, man. Very, very good.
Yeah, look at your team. I'm going to monitor this as well, because I didn't draft Raheem Mostert to need to start him. I did not start him this past week because I have better running backs. At least I thought I did. But look at your team. If you can, there's been so many running back injuries. If you can trade him, look at some options. See what you can do with that. But also look at your team. If you've got 3 running backs and he's your 3rd, don't trade him off. As we've seen in the first 2 weeks, you're going to need running back depth. This is just week 2, and we've lost some serious guys for the season already. All right. Number 5 on the list here, Keenan Allen. Great to see him, man. He's been so solid, so consistent. We've been high on him. I've drafted him in 2 leagues. Keenan Allen with 28 points. You got to feel good about him each and every week. Number 6, Frank, I want you to break this guy down. Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson with almost 28 points looks great. I mean, this was a guy I wasn't high on. He was a plodding running back. I thought he was slow. He looks fantastic, man. Break down Brian Robinson.
He looks amazing, John. He's the number 3 running back right now in fantasy. I get it's only been 2 weeks, but it's the way he looks and the way he's fitting in an Eric Bieniemy offense. We've not seen this with Washington yet. And so that's what makes this so fascinating. Guys, week 1, he had 13 fantasy points. Week 2, John just mentioned, he ended up having 28 fantasy points. He ended up running the ball 18 times for 87 yards and finding the end zone twice. He also ended up hauling in 2 receptions on 3 targets for 42 receiving yards. That was Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson is not there right now. Like whatever's going on, they're running with Brian Robinson. And John, it is proving to be effective. This Washington team is fun as hell to watch. Sam Howell is looking good. The receivers are in sync. Chase Young and that defense are making plays, even though Russell Wilson and the team ended up putting up 33 points last week. And I get that that's not a stellar point from the defense. However, what I'm getting at is the team cohesively is coming together. And so then you layer on a running back to where they needed this dude. And by the way, it does help that you're not getting shot, and you got to come back from, being carjacked and you got a leg, all that shit. So that could be playing into it. But John, I'm all about this guy. Fire him up in a flex or running back 2 and feel really good about it.
All right, a couple quarterbacks on here. Not guys you drafted really highly or drafted at all, but Russell Wilson with 28 points, Jared Goff with 28 points, Josh Allen, good to see him make a big comeback this week. We knew he would, 27 points. Touch briefly here, the number 10 guy of fantasy, DeAndre Swift, 27 points. Now, I want to preface this. We got many, many comments on YouTube. Good call on DeAndre Swift, assholes, that type of thing, because we said, stay away from this Eagles backfield until you know exactly where the roles are. Well, what happened is in between filming during the week, Kenneth Gainwell was ruled out. Boston Scott got hurt during the game. Rashad Penny, they didn't use until the game was already handled into the second half, well into the fourth quarter, I believe, before Rashad Penny even had a carry. This was situational, but he seized on the opportunity. So moving forward, Kenneth Gainwell's still questionable. We're not sure if he's going to play or not. Are you just smashing DeAndre Swift moving forward because of his performance? Did he earn it?
No, I mean, he earned it. Yes, he earned, but for me, no, because guys, Minnesota's defense isn't good. Let's just Brian Flores is doing what he can do. He's the defensive coordinator for Minnesota. And yeah, they were good in for the first quarter and so on, but they were heavily depleted. They don't have Dalvin Tomlinson. They don't have Zadarius Smith. They have an old cornerback room, and their safeties are getting old with Harrison Smith. And so, no, truly believe this was maybe not a one-off occurrence, but it was a perfect storm for DeAndre Swift to do what he did. That doesn't mean I'm out on him. I was a DeAndre Swift believer. I even traded to get him last year. Right. So I am on the DeAndre Swift train. The problem is what do they do? Because here you had Kenneth Gainwell, who had the opportunity and then got hurt. And then we mentioned, Boston Scott, guys, he was in there running well and got it. He was out with an injury, and then DeAndre Swift took the bulk of the load. So moving forward, are we going to see a split now between Swift and Gainwell? Is Rashad Penny going to get his fair share now that Boston Scott's injured? So I think DeAndre Swift, if you need to, you can plug him in and try to ride this wave. But I still need to see more. I really do. I want to see what happens when Gainwell's healthy and when that of Rashad Penny is now in the fold. What's going to happen there? So no, I'm not 100% on him.
You might not have the option with all the running back injuries we had. You're definitely going to be putting him in probably as your running back too. But you're absolutely right. I mean, you can't just expect this to be the new normal going forward. Yeah. Keep an eye on that. It was the stars and the moons aligning for DeAndre Swift this week for sure. But he looked good. He looked really good. A couple of honorable mentions here. Mike Evans. We had him as a start of the week. Baker loves some Mike Evans there, 27 points. Geno Smith, 27 points. Lamar, good to see him back with 27 points. Patrick Mahomes, very standard, typical 26 points like he does every single week. Jordan Love, 25 points. Jalen Hurts back to form, 25 points. Nico Collins, start of the week for us last week, 25 points. This is a guy you can play, I think, every week, man.
Totally.
Yeah, negative game scripts. I think he is the perfect flex player, is Nico Collins, especially in a PPR. Kyren Williams, we talked about him. He just took over the Rams backfield, 25 points. T. Higgins, welcome back. We knew T. Higgins was going to make it back at some point here. 25 points out of him. Special mention, Jerome Ford, almost 25 points, playing basically 3 quarters. So there we go. All right, Frankie, let's get to finish up the episode here with a Thursday night preview. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Thursday night football this week, guys, we've got the New York Giants at the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers are favored by 10. Ooh, very big spread there. Over under a 45. Hey, can these Giants just get a fucking break, man? I mean, really, you got to open up the first 3 games of the year with Dallas and San Francisco. That's just brutal, man.
Brutal.
Can you start anybody on the Giants this week?
No. The only one that I might is Darren Waller. Other than that, no. Don't feel good about it at all.
No, and Darren Waller, I'm scared to death. He's not fully healthy. I'm just scared to death that, number one, he doesn't finish the game. And I mean, that's it. Roll out Darren Waller and just cross your fingers and pray to God.
Yeah, say a prayer.
Yeah. All right. Well, the Giants defense did not look very good the first 2 weeks of the season here. Are you starting pretty much everybody on the 49ers? It's just going to be fire them all up.
Fire them all up. Every single one of them across the board. Guys, if the Cardinals are putting up 28 points, this could get ugly. This could get ugly quick. I mean, we're talking about the team that put up 30 against Pittsburgh, right? Like, this is going to get ugly. But yes, fire them up. Feel really good about it.
The one guy that I don't feel really good about is George Kittle. Is just because of the name and the tight end landscape, are you just starting George Kittle no matter what? Or are you looking for other options there?
John, for this matchup, I'm still going to fire up George Kittle here for this matchup specifically. Now, again, you got to monitor to make sure he's healthy and he's not banged up and all this other stuff, which he appears to be. He caught 3 passes for 30 yards against the Rams. He's been pretty quiet. But other than that, John, I think that he could find his footing this week, especially against a pretty depleted Giants team. I mean, but again, if you had to pick somebody, it would be him that you could be like, test other avenues. But I still would fire him up.
Yeah, that's not the Thursday night football preview that you want to have, because it's pretty cut and dry, and I think it's going to be ugly as hell, man.
It's going to be bad.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Gave you a quick rundown of what happened in week 2. Join us join us in 2 days on Friday, dropping down an episode. We're going to be doing our smash or pass, our hit it and quit it, our starts and sits for week 3. See who we love and see who we don't. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Don't forget, follow us on Instagram. It's a great follow at Frankly Fantasy Football. Please subscribe to the podcast. The audio is everywhere podcasts are found, and the video on YouTube at Frankly Fantasy Football. Have a great week. Do it, baby. You ready, Frankie?
I'm ready. I'm ready for Thursday night. Get your lineups in.
That's right. Don't start your Giants and start all your 49ers. May the fantasy gods smile upon you.